So, you've probably heard about Pokemon from somewhere in your life. Whether you were a child, or whether you've been hearing about the comparisons of Pokemon to Palworld and how one is objectively worse than the other, or whatever, or how the Pokemon TCG is dying because of pull rates or blah blah blah, or how Pokemon has bad graphics and we're tired of the gameplay. I don't care. I'm here to tell you I essentially don't care about any of that stuff because I really just like the cards, and I want to fill something that I don't typically see talked about, which is each individual set, from base set all the way to the current set, which for English is going to be Paldean Fates, but for Japanese would be Cyber Judge and Wild Force, essentially talking about the sets and what they bring to the table and why you should care about them, why they are known or why they're not known by the wider Pokemon audience. The sets of the Pokemon TCG are vast, but I want to narrow it down to the one that started it all. Base set. I am almost certain that if you've ever heard of Pokemon in your life, or even if you haven't, almost everyone has seen this card before. This card is the holy grail of the Pokemon TCG. If you own one, you're either an original fan of the series, or you got a lot of cash to fork over to the Pokemon hobby gods. Anyways, aside from the serious possible money investment that this may be, let's just talk about the topic at hand. Our English base set was released in the year 1999 by Wizards of the Coast. This set features 102 cards illustrated by 4 different artists. Going into this review of base set, I actually didn't know there were only 4, as my little brain could only assume that the start of the biggest franchise in the entire world would have more than 4 artists working on it. But I suppose they went with the people who were available, and those 4 people released one of the most influential expansions that any card game has likely ever seen. Let's start with the artist with only 1 card in the set. Tomoaki Imakuni, who illustrated the Porygon in the set. The Porygon in base set may be one of the more basic artworks, but for 1999, I think it works. The simple polygonal design with the simple polygonal backgrounds works for Porygon, as it's essentially supposed to be some sort of computery Pokemon. So I would say that this card does it quite well, but I can see how some people might not like it. Next, let's talk about Keiji Kinebuchi, who illustrated 36 cards for base set. Keiji illustrated and I assume designed all of the energy cards that we see in base set, which includes double colorless, fighting, fire, grass, lightning, and psychic, and water. These cards are iconic at this point. You can't have a base set booster pack without the 2 energies, and these iconic designs have been tweaked and altered over the years, but the basic design of them still stands all these years later, which is a circle logo surrounded by some sort of little white energy. Kinebuchi also worked on 19 of the trainer class cards in base set. Their style is largely similar, 3D artwork with simplistic lines that drape the backgrounds, or checkerboard patterns such as with the evolution spray, or diagonal lines like the computer search card. Mostly simplistic backgrounds with the item or Pokemon on the actual card, such as for the Switch. But let's talk about the actual Pokemon here. They worked on 11 Pokemon, including Voltorb, Staryu, Starmie, Magnemite, Ghastly, Diglett, Kakuna, Haunter, Electrode, Dugtrio, and Magneton. From what I can see, they were commissioned to do certain Pokemon's evolution lines, like Voltorb and Electrode, or Magnemite or Magneton. Their artwork is very simplistic, but not at a fault. At this time and era, which is over 25 years old at this point, the artwork is good. Sometimes focusing on more of the effects of the card, such as the Voltorb or the Magnemite, and sometimes focusing more on the backgrounds, such as with the Ghastly or the Diglett. I feel like compared to the other cards in base set, Kinebuchi's style is pretty distinct when compared to the other artists that worked on the set. But Kinebuchi flows right into our next artist, Ken Sugimori. If you know about Pokemon, you know about Ken Sugimori. Have you ever seen the box art for Red and Blue? Or a lot of the renders of the Pokemon and trainers in existence? Then you've probably seen at least one Ken Sugimori artwork, as he is an actual living legend when it comes to Pokemon artwork in the sphere. Sugimori worked on 46 cards in the base set, which is almost half of the entire set. Sugimori worked on 6 of the trainer cards from base set, being Imposter Professor Oak, Lass, Pokemon Breeder, Pokemon Trader, Bill, and of course, Professor Oak. While the cards are in simple poses mostly, the Pokemon Trader stands with a Farfetch'd, which is pretty cool. Though the poses are basic, that doesn't mean that they're bad. They are the outline for what these trainers will be like for over the next 25 years. And I feel like the same can absolutely be said with the Pokemon themselves. Sugimori illustrated 12 of the 16 holographic cards in the set, which is almost all of them. These include Alakazam, Blastoise, Chansey, Clefairy, Hitmonchan, Machamp, Mewtwo, Nidoking, Ninetales, Poliwrath, Raichu, and Zapdos. For the holographic cards, you can see that the background was mostly a simple color or two, mixed around with the cards to give them a still unique look, but not much else was given to the backgrounds of them. And though the poses are somewhat basic, they are the embodiment of these Pokemon in their most basic and pure form. So many iconic cards that Sugimori illustrated, such as the Mewtwo and the Blastoise, which still stand the test of time. And of course, obviously, the other ones do too. But it shows us that Sugimori is more than just a competent artist. A lot of the non-holographic cards by Sugimori have either simplistic backgrounds, such as the Electabuzz, the Jynx, and the Vulpix, or detailed backgrounds that are real-life-esque, such as the Pidgey or the Ponyta. Even the Ivysaur and the Dratini have semi-realistic backgrounds. As well as that, there are ones that are more unique, with either colorful backgrounds or elemental slash effect heavy backgrounds, like Farfetch'd or Magmar. Suffice to say, if the Pokemon TCG didn't have Ken Sugimori, I don't know how far they would have gotten, honestly. Now, we can talk about Mitsuhiro Arita. Other than the Magneton Holo, which was done by Kinebuchi as talked about earlier, all of the other holographic cards were done by Arita, so that's three. The Charizard, the Venusaur, and the Gyarados. These are some of the most iconic cards in base set, and for a very good reason. The pose that Charizard is in is very unique, as we've been looking at artworks of Pokemon in simplistic poses, but none of a Pokemon that has its head down in an effect of breathing fire. I could talk about how influential this card is, but the widespread knowledge of it alone is enough to say a million things about it. I'll just say it's one of the most iconic cards in the TCG, and leave it at that. But even the non-holographic cards done by Arita are all works of art. With unique backgrounds that set every Pokemon apart, it gives them character, puts them in a unique environment where you can see them all in an actual habitat. Illustrated backgrounds that show off the surroundings, or the Pokemon actually doing something, such as the Charmander, which is setting the grass behind it on fire, or the Doduo, who is running in the desert quickly, leaving behind a trail of dust, or even the Machop, who holds an enormous boulder to show off its strength. I could keep going and going. The Squirtle shooting up bubbles on top of a pile of rocks, or the Tangela, whose vines cover the screen, but the vines around it are still discernible, and the Coughing, who's exploding? No, I think he's shooting out gas. Or the Abra sitting down in front of a tree. I feel like Arita really paved the ground for the other artists to push these Pokemon into places they haven't been before, like giving them a purpose or making them do something related to the environment. That idea is invaluable, and the cards that Arita illustrates always show the evolution of the idea of what a Pokemon is and how it would live in the world, surrounded by other Pokemon. Arita has continued illustrating unique and special Pokemon cards, even to this very day, with almost 700 unique cards under his belt. I don't know if he's going anywhere anytime soon, and I'm happy about that, as I really appreciate the work of this artist, and for that fact, all of the artists of the original base set have done for the franchise. This franchise is popular for a really good reason, and it's because they have something special on their hands. No matter what kind of controversy, no matter what kind of quality games or quality whatever, I applaud the illustrators of the Pokemon TCG, and this set proved to me that they really had something special on their hands, even in 1999, that will see many changes and an evolution in the coming years that I will try to discuss. Thank you for listening to me blabber about Pokemon cards. See ya.